Welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. It's my trusty E36 with the turbo M52 you've seen plenty of times. We got a new problem today, and it's kind of turning into a crap show, so I figured, you know what, let me take YouTube along with me. So what had happened was I was at a drift event, having a great time, everything's working well, and towards the end of the day, the car started to idle a little rough, but it was pouring rain, I didn't think much of it. Day was over, threw it on the trailer, brought it home, everything's great. Well, I go to start it up the next morning and I notice right away when I go to crank it, she's got the dreaded gallop. And the gallop is when you got a cylinder that's down on compression, you can hear it go choo 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 choo, you know, noise like that. I'm gonna put the plugs back into this and put it back together and replicate that sound for you so we can all learn together. And then we will go through my troubleshooting technique on how I determine what's wrong with this engine and hopefully fix it without a major overhaul. Here she's got that very unusual gallop where it's like choo-choo-choo, choo-choo-choo, choo-choo-choo. Well, that means we got a cylinder that's low on compression, most likely. The thing to clarify is I did all this troubleshooting with the valve cover on before I tore into the motor. And that's when I realized, all right, we're getting kind of deep here. Let's pull out the camera. Let's catch up on what we did and what we need to do. So the next step was to compression test all 6 cylinders and determine where my dead hole is. So now we're getting somewhere. We identified that cylinder 4 not only has low compression, it has 0 compression. All the other cylinders tested decent. They're all within maybe 15% of each other. It's not amazing, but it is a, you know, old used motor that sees a lot of torture. Now we need to learn where is that air going. I'm gonna roll cylinder 4 over to top dead center. So in the magic of YouTube and how things work, of course the cylinder is now not leaking. After I just demonstrated it to you with 0 PSI of compression, I put the leak down tester in and we're not leaking. However, I want to demonstrate the sound I was hearing to you. So if you listen to your intake here and open your throttle body, I hope you can hear that noise. That noise indicates that we are passing through an intake valve here. I'm pulling my hair out on this one. You guys heard the galloping cranking. You saw the 0 PSI compression test. Yet now cylinder 4 is acting right and it has compression again. Explain that? Well, I have one idea, but it wasn't exactly the way I wanted this to go. So since I can't replicate this all of a sudden, let me explain to you my thought process and what I did here. So we're looking at cylinder 4 right here. You got both intake valves right here, both exhaust valves right here. At top dead center, when I would put my compression tester into this hole and pressurize it, I would have air pissing out the throttle body like you heard earlier. And my first thought was, all right, I got a bent valve. That sucks, I gotta pull the cylinder head off. So I said, you know what, let me try one thing here just before we do that. Just in case like a lifter is stuck or something's going on, I started loosening the intake camshaft all the way up to the front sprocket. I turned them all off like 3 turns. I turned them all off until I could get a feeler gauge underneath these 2 cam lobes here for cylinder 4. I plugged the compression tester back on and boom, it is solid, no leakage on the intake valves. So now I'm thinking, wow, what do I have? A lifter that's stuck in the extended position because these are hydraulic lifters. You know, I'm not really sure what's going on. So then I leave the compression tester in here, pumping air in, and I slowly torque down on the camshaft. And I'll be damned, as I get tighter on the intake cam, those valves start to piss air out the throttle body again. So something here is going on. Either an intake valve has extended itself upwards, meaning that it's like mushroomed into the head and now the stem is sticking out higher and the hydraulic lifter is out of travel, or the hydraulic lifter got stuck in the cam tray, like in the bore, which I'm thinking that's very unlikely because it seems to move very smoothly. It doesn't make any noise. There's no shavings, nothing to indicate that. Or I think the third and most likely option is that one of these hydraulic lifters was stuck in an extended position, holding that valve open slightly, and it would not collapse even when the oil pressure came off of it. And I think that's what happened here, is it was in that state for whatever reason. And through me playing with it, lifting the cam, cranking it, doing all these compression tests, that lifter finally settled back down again, and now the valve seals again. The way these lifters work is you've got the entire lifter assembly or tappet that rides up and down in this cam tray here. The cam drives it on this surface. The cam is cut at a little bit of an angle to actually rotate and turn this lifter as it's lifting, so that way you don't basically burn a hole in the middle. And then an important part is there's an oil hole here in the side of the lifter. And this picks up oil pressure from the cam tray, which is provided by the cylinder head. And then that is ported to the actual hydraulic mechanism in the lifter here, which is this little nipple, we'll call it. Right? And that little nipple is what rides on top of your valve. And this is what takes up the lash. So there's no adjustment required for these lifters. These are not a lifter that you shim, or you don't adjust a rocker arm, anything like that. The oil pressure basically takes care of that. So you still get your desired valve lift, but you don't have the maintenance and the lash associated with a manually adjusted lifter. My thoughts are something happened where this lifter stuck in a more extended position. And when I say more extended, we're talking 2 or 3, 4 thousandths of an inch maybe. Just enough to hold one of those intake valves off the seat slightly to make it not seal. All that being said, we're gonna crank it again with 6 plugs in it and listen for that gallop. It ain't perfect. It's still got a cylinder that's lower than the rest, or a couple, whatever. I mean, I never said the motor was perfect, but that's a drastic difference from what we heard earlier. Let me play both back to back so you can hear the difference here. So I just threw the valve cover back on. I want to see if this thing's going to start and idle on all 6 cylinders again. Then we'll reevaluate from there. I mean, that's very nice that it runs great again. What the heck happened here 2 days ago when this thing wouldn't run on 6 cylinders and had no compression on cylinder 4? We could pull the coil from cylinder 4 and prove that it's firing. Right, dead miss, and there we go, she picks right back up. So cylinder 4 is firing. Or even idling stupid low, like 500 RPMs on cold start here on E85. It's cold out. It's 38 degrees. She's idling great. Explain me that one. Getting oil everywhere because the valve cover's not on right. But each coil that I lift, we have a noticeable contribution loss here at idle. So all 6 cylinders are consistently hitting. There's no problem there. I'm kind of thinking of sequence of events of how this happened. I think maybe cylinder 4 intake valve stuck, and then we washed the cylinder down, and then we lost some compression that way. So maybe that will come back to life. Maybe it will gain its compression back a little bit once the rings seat again, she sees some oil. We'll see if it'll do it here idle. It probably needs a good beat down. Maybe I'll tie it to the tree, do a 4-gear burnout, get all the rings seated again, or I'll take it down the road and do that as well, but it's a little late for that tonight, so let's see what happens here. It's got noticeably more blow-by than this engine ever had. Now, it's not bad. It's not like it's blowing the cap off, but this thing was really, really solid, and now it does have some blow-by, which is really a shame. I think we did hurt cylinder 4 a little bit with this lifter incident. Slept on it, thought about it, and I think my best path forward is to pull this thing apart and pull out the lifters on the intake valve in cylinder 4 and just replace them. You just have to trust yourself sometimes. I saw that that lifter was stuck and that valve was held open, and even though I can't replicate the condition, now just for fun, I'm gonna crank this thing and see if she gallops today, now that it's got a chance to heat up and cool off again, and then we'll go ahead and take it apart. Sounds about the same as it did last night. Let's tear it apart. Caught top dead on the timing balancer up there, and you can see the cams are basically square with the holes facing up. Cylinder 1 lobes are pointing towards each other. Top dead center on cylinder 1 on the compression stroke. There's the old camshaft. Looks just about as crappy as it was when I put it in, but cylinder 4 lobes here. I don't see anything unusual. All right, see you later. There they all go. All right, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this lifter here and this lifter here are the ones that came out of cylinder 4. I don't feel anything crazy with these. The lifter turns in the tappet. Now usually I can't compress these with my finger. That one I brought out last night to demonstrate, that was like a rare case. Usually these don't collapse though with your finger, and I've run tons of them that way, never an issue. So in here, I am noticing some pretty gnarly looking scuffing inside the bore there. I also noticed a pretty gnarly scuff on cylinder 1. You know, it looks like there's been an attack to the lifter bore. Now, when I originally did my troubleshooting on this, I think I proved that it wasn't actually a lifter bore issue. It was a lifter itself. But looking at these marks here, this is definitely on the concerning side. I'm not sure how well that's showing up for you guys, but this is pretty concerning. It's hard to explain. I think I'm gonna do lifters and a tray. Oh. Here's what's actually inside those. This is the lifter. I guess you could call it the lifter. And you've got this plunger here with a spring, and the spring, you know, keeps the tap down before the oil pressure comes up. Here's the actual piston action, you know, that we witness. And then the third part is that this hole, the actual tappet that sits on the valve, or the actual lifter, whatever you want to call it, that actually needs to be able to move. That's gone. This actually needs to be able to move in this tappet body here. And that was where, like you saw, I had to really pull that out with pliers, and it was not moving freely. It's pretty normal that these don't move freely. I mean, out of all these motors I've taken out, they hardly ever actually move freely. And maybe that's not good, but you could see in here, you know, you've got your oil hole, and then that ports you into here, and then that's going to fill the backside of that piston and then create the hydraulic lifter. There's a very small, like, it's not a snap ring, it's just like a ring that creates some tension around this, and you know, you could have one of them bind up and potentially you know, create this issue of a lifter staying proud. So with the little snap ring thing removed, you can now more dramatically see the action of the lifter. So it's never moving that much, it moves, you know, fractions of that, but that basically demonstrates what needs to happen. So let's go shopping for some more lifters and trays. Oh, there's 2 on the floor of this side of the shop. Oh, I see 1. I see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty good. Okay, let's keep shopping, see if I have any more. I always got to check the parts truck out back. There's a cam. Oh. There's a tray with lifters in it. Look at that, there's a box of them. 4 more of them, a couple camshafts. So out of the whole bunch of these I have laying around, I found one that I'm happy with. The bores look great, and every lifter moves super freely, right? See that? Every one I checked moves by your finger, no problem at all. When you're looking for these, like let's say you have a pile of cam trays, you want to pick a good one. First of all, make sure it's got an E on it for intake, and then we have an A for exhaust. So that's how the Germans work with their Ausfarts and their whatever else. So E, intake, not exhaust. A is exhaust. Quick soda. We're gonna clean this up, put it back together. But before we do that, I wanna check one thing. I like to take a look down the row here, make sure all the valves look symmetrical and in line. right? That would be a dead giveaway of something catastrophically wrong. And then I take a straight edge and I want to lay it across all the valves here and look for high or low valves. They should all be very, very, very close. They're not going to be exact, but they're going to be very close. The reason I do this is because if you had a valve that was starting to mushroom into the cylinder head, its valve height is going to be protruding, and this straight edge is going to rock. That this all feels good, nothing's rocking, and then we know that we don't actually have a physically bent valve or a valve that's mushrooming into the head. Clean these lifters up. Look at that. I can see my dumbass head in this thing. That is a really nice lifter. Polished really nice. Plunger is nice and free. This thing is like brand new. Thank you, CJ, for the free BMW parts. I'll put them to use. So a little tip for dropping this onto the motor. All lifters want to fall out of the tray. So I take these little magnets and I stick one on each lifter, and then take a piece of welding rod, snap it on there like that. And now the lifters can't fall out. This is easy and works great, holds them all in. Somebody does make a 3D printed little tool you snap in here. I always wanted one of those, just never got one because I had these other magnets. But yeah, it just makes it totally idiot proof. You can throw this thing around, the lifters aren't going anywhere. That bad girl in there just like that. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put this motor back together, get the vanos timed up, get the valve cover buttoned up, everything else. I'll catch you guys once that's done. Unless something interesting happens, I will turn the camera back on. If you need help setting up your vanos, I do have a video called Advanced Vanos Troubleshooting that is pretty comprehensive for, I think, everything you need to know about how single vanos works and how to troubleshoot and install it. So go ahead and check that out. I'll catch you in a minute. Couple of these lifters are pretty loud right now, but that's kind of what I would expect because, you know, they were sitting out in that truck for years with no oil in them, so they're going to take a little bit to pump up, but so far so good. I'll just give her the old Italian tune-up, a couple third, fourth gear rolling burnouts up the street, and the lifter's quieted up a little bit. I still got one loud lifter, and that'll go away. That'll go away, and you know, a couple more beat downs. Though she still got a slight gallop during cranking that was not there before this lifter failure, so we may have done a little bit of harm to cylinder 4, but only time will tell. Let's check the blow-by now that it's hot. Yeah, she's making a little crankcase pressure. There's no denying that. A lot of this is fuel that's boiling off, E85 that's boiling off from when I basically wash the cylinder down half a day, but nothing crazy. Not ideal though. I mean, it used to be a lot better than this. I'm going to wrap this one up here. So there's a lot of unknowns in this video. I don't quite understand exactly what the order of events that took place here. It looks like, you know, our valve problem is fixed. We got good seal that way, but we do have a cylinder that's a little low on compression as a result of this incident. So only time will tell if that cylinder comes back to life or not. I'm still going to hammer down until she explodes, and we'll see if the rings reseat. If they do, great. If they don't, then whatever. Or it's possible we have a damaged piston. I highly doubt we could have broke a ringland, but you know, I don't know what can happen when the intake valve is slightly stuck open and you're drifting at full throttle. So who knows? But anyway, I'm really curious what you guys think about this one. Post it down in the comments. This is definitely new for me. I've never had any type of valve train issues with any of these BMW inline-6 motors, so this is a totally new one for me. But anyway, let me know what you've experienced, what you think happened here, and you think this engine is going to hold together or is it going to explode? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching Spank Ranch Garage. I'll see you next time.